Welcome to a chilling story steeped in mystery and suspense, set within the desolate halls of an old psychiatric hospital. Here, rules transcend mere guidelines. They're the lifeline that guards against the shadows that lurk within. Join me as we unravel the haunting enigma of the Eloise complex, where survival depends on obeying the unspoken and confronting the unknown. Tommy Kowalsski found himself at a crossroads after losing steady work installing drywall on new condos due to a sudden housing market crash. For 2 months, he survived on ramen and dodged his landlord's calls until his cousin Eddie tipped him off about an overnight security position at the old psychiatric hospital known as the Eloise complex. The job promised $12 an hour, full benefits, and a solitude Tommy craved. No supervisors breathing down his neck, over beers at Buddy's Pizza on 8 Mile. Eddie casually described the place as just an abandoned building soon to be converted into apartments, suggesting the role merely involved patrolling wards, preventing break-ins, and protecting the infrastructure from theft and vandalism. What Eddie neglected to mention was the list of haunting rules posted at the security desk or the mysterious brass key that came with the position. Secrets that would shape Tommy's unsettling night ahead. Welcome, dear viewers. For more exclusive and thrilling stories every week, consider joining our membership. Sit back, relax, and enjoy your coffee. The hydrotherapy wing has been locked for 50 years, its old tubs gathering dust. Yet, some nights, a frantic splashing echoes from within, like a small animal struggling in the water. The head of security handed me a single, ancient brass key and instructed, if you hear the water, go down to the basement valve and turn it on for exactly 1 minute. Don't shut off. You're giving her more. He never explained what happens if the tub runs dry. This conversation occurred 3 hours ago, and now I'm sitting alone in the main security office of the Eloise complex in Westland, watching 16 monitors flicker between empty hallways. My name is Tommy Kowalsski. 6 months ago, I was installing drywall in new condos in Lincoln Park, a good job with steady pay and normal hours. Then the housing market crashed, and my construction company folded faster than a card table. My cousin Eddie works for Allied Security Services in Dearborn. He mentioned they needed someone for the overnight shift at the old psychiatric hospital, offering $12 an hour, full benefits, and no supervision. A perfect fit for someone who'd spent 2 months eating ramen and dodging his landlord's calls. It's just an old building, Eddie said over beers at Buddy's Pizza on 8 Mile. They're converting it into apartments eventually. You just need to prevent break-ins, copper theft, and graffiti. What Eddie didn't mention was the list of rules taped to the security desk, 7 typed on an old, faded sheet. Nor did he mention the brass key or that parts of the building still had running water, even in sealed sections. Walter Kaczynski, the head of security, a thin man who looked like he'd worked nights since the Carter administration, handed me a heavy ring of keys and a dented thermos smelling of coffee and cigarettes. His handshake was brittle like drywood. "Read the rules twice," he said, pointing to the yellowed paper. "Follow them exactly. Don't be a hero. Don't question why they exist. Just obey." Asked about the hydrotherapy wing rule. Why turn the water on instead of off? He pulled on his coat and headed out, leaving me with just one answer. Because she's been thirsty for a very long time. It's now 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in October, and I'm alone in a building that once housed over 10,000 patients at its peak. The wind rattles the windows, and somewhere distant, the old heating system cycles on and off. I have reread the 7 simple night security protocols twice. They don't seem simple at all. Rule 1. Complete hourly patrols of wards A, B, and C only. Do not enter Ward D after 10 p.m. Rule 2. If you hear water running in the hydrotherapy wing, use the brass key to access the basement. Turn the main valve clockwise for exactly 60 seconds. Then leave immediately. Rule 3. The elevator to the 4th floor operates between midnight and 3 a.m. If the doors open by themselves, do not get in. Wait for them to close. Rule 4. Kitchen patrol. Check all freezer doors. If one's ajar, close it and move on. Do not look inside. Rule 5. If a patient calls your name from room 237, ignore them. That room has been empty since 1974. Rule 6. Morning medication cart sits in the pharmacy. If pills are scattered on the floor, sweep them up and return them to their bottles quickly. Rule 7. End of shift report. Document observations only. Do not speculate. The clock reads 11:58 p.m. as I start my patrol down a main hallway. It feels like the corridor of an old hotel long past its prime, with green linoleum flooring and cream walls marred by scuffs at wheelchair height. Institutional lights buzz quietly above. Ward A looks as if frozen in time. Hospital beds and small dressers lining the open-door rooms. The air smells like disinfectant mixed with something stale and medicinal, reminding me of my grandfather's nursing home. A thorough check marched the ward clear at 12:17 a.m. Ward B is different. Smaller rooms and left-behind belongings. Old magazines, faded photos, a ceramic fish-shaped ashtray. The atmosphere is unsettling, as if the occupants might return at any moment. A calendar on the wall remains turned to March 1987, with mysterious color markings I can't decipher. Ward C takes me past the kitchen into the dining hall. The kitchen door is propped open, revealing industrial appliances large enough to cook for hundreds. The heavy steel door of the walk-in freezer is secure, its compressor humming steadily. Suddenly, the unmistakable sound of running water draws my attention, not from pipes or heating, but actual flowing water. I take the brass key and find the basement door marked Authorized Personnel Only. The key fits perfectly. Descending concrete steps lead into darkness illuminated by a single bulb. The sound grows louder. I navigate a maze of heating ducts and electrical pipes to a large wheel-shaped valve on the ceiling pipe. I turn it clockwise for exactly 60 seconds as instructed. The water flow increases audibly. Returning upstairs, the sound fades, and I mark the utility check complete at 12:52 a.m. The building feels quieter, as though the thirsty force has been sated. A short break allows me coffee from Walter's thermos. Walking back, I notice the elevator's floor indicator on the second floor, despite no movement. Per Rule 3, the elevator operates between midnight and 3 a.m. If its doors open on their own, I'm to avoid it. At 1 a.m., I begin my second patrol. The silence has weight, unlike the creaks and settling noises of old houses I know. Empty open doors stare like silent jaws. Moving quickly, I approach Ward B only to find a previously open door with a March 1987 calendar now closed. It carries a fresh black X over today's date, October 15th, though the ink looks suspiciously new for such an old calendar. Strangely compelled, I open the door and stare at the marking. My internal clock tells me I didn't miss it before. An unused draft, I tell myself. Back in the kitchen, I find a walk-in freezer's compressor making a halting noise. The door is still sealed tight, so I follow protocol and move on. The elevator indicator flickers again. The cab moves from a second floor to the ground floor with doors closed, then slowly opens by itself. The empty car glows dimly, unlit call buttons offering no summoning signal. I shrink against the far wall, watching the doors remain open for 30 seconds before closing and heading upward to the fourth floor, where they pause. Static on my radio suddenly breaks into fragments of distorted voices, but nothing clear. Back in the security office at 1:45 a.m. Monitors show barren hallways except for monitor 7, where the calendar room's door swings shut on its own at 1:38 a.m. with no one visible. Norms of old buildings, drafts, heating cycles, settling walls seem reasonable explanations, but doubts seep in nonetheless. At 2 a.m., I begin my third patrol, deliberately skipping Ward B. Ward A remains untouched, empty and still. Ward C is stable, with the freezer humming normally. Then, from upstairs, a voice calls, "Tommy, Tom, are you up there?" It's unmistakably Eddie's voice, casual yet insistent, sounding from Ward D, the area I must avoid after 10 p.m. The elevator, currently on the 4th floor, stands ready. The call buttons remain dark. The voice pleads, "Tommy, come on up. Got something to show you." The tone edges with the impatience familiar from drinking nights past. But Eddie is home, asleep, texting me moments ago. Rule 5 says to ignore calls from room 237. A patient room empty since 1974. This is different. Minutes pass, the voice fades, and the building returns to its quiet haunt. At 2:41 a.m., I note the elevator now reads B for basement, a floor not served according to building blueprints. Calling Eddie yields no response. His phone is inactive. The messages between us vanish from my records, as if this night's conversations were never. At 3 a.m., I patrol with a measuring eye, documenting everything. Ward B's calendar now bears a red circle on October 16th marked "Last Day" in my own handwriting. Words I don't recall writing. In the same ward, I find a patient chart with the name Edmund Kowalsski, my cousin's full name. Medical notes as the night deepened. Tommy Kowalsski began his first patrol through the haunting corridors of the Eloise complex. He moved cautiously along dimly lit hallways lined with worn linoleum floors and walls marked by years of wear. Ward A stretched before him, a series of patient rooms, empty to their occupants but heavy with lingering memories. Each door stood open, revealing stark hospital beds and sparse furnishings bathed in the pale glow of moonlight filtering through barred windows. The air was thick with a mingled sense of disinfectant and something stale and medicinal, stirring reminiscences of old nursing homes. Methodically, Tommy checked every room in Ward A, noting the silence and emptiness, marking the time on his clipboard as he proceeded. Then he made his way to Ward B, where the atmosphere shifted. The rooms here, smaller and more personal, bore traces of lives paused abruptly. Faded photographs, old magazines, and a curious ceramic ashtray shaped like a fish. A dated calendar on one wall, still turned to March 1987, caught his eye. Its dates were marked with enigmatic symbols in various colors, presenting a pattern he could not decipher. Despite feeling drawn to it, Tommy forced himself to move on. Ward C took him past the kitchen and the dining hall, where industrial appliances loomed silent and imposing. He inspected the walk-in freezer, confirming its tightly closed door and the steady hum of its compressor. Yet amid this routine, a peculiar sound emerged, the unmistakable rush of flowing water from somewhere nearby. Heart pounding, Tommy retrieved the brass key given to him by the head of security, its metal cool and familiar in his hand, and proceeded cautiously towards the basement, the source of the mysterious water noise awaiting him in the dimness below. As the night deepened, Tommy's initial unease gave way to growing suspicion when subtle anomalies began to surface during his patrols. The seemingly mundane calendar stuck on the wall of the patient room captured his attention. It belonged to March 1987, yet its dates were marked mysteriously with various symbols: blue X's, red circles, and green check marks. The pattern was cryptic, and despite his efforts to decode it, the meaning eluded him. The building, with its dim corridors and stale air, seemed to harbor secrets that whispered just beyond the edge of perception. Tommy's discovery of the closed door in Ward B, which he'd previously left open, heightened his sense that the hospital was alive with more than just memories. The intruding sounds, the unexpected splashes of water, the elevator moving on its own, combined with these anomalies, drew an intricate picture of a place where time and reality blurred. Through these eerie signs, Tommy sensed that the simple rules taped to his desk were only a surface layer, carefully designed to keep something contained. Piece by piece, As more strange occurrences unfolded, he began to realize that the Eloise complex was far from abandoned. It was a nexus of haunting echoes from a past that refused to fade, pulling him deeper into an unsettling mystery that demanded answers. As the night deepened, Tommy's solitude was broken by a chilling and familiar voice echoing from the upper floors. It was Eddie, his cousin, calling out to him from the fourth floor of the vast, shadowy complex. Despite the unmistakable tone and inflection unique to Eddie's Detroit accent, Tommy was certain Eddie was nowhere near, likely asleep at home, nursing the effects of his earlier drinks at Buddy's Pizza. The voice wasn't just distant, it was insistent, coaxing Tommy to come up, promising something to show him. This unsettling encounter unfolded against the backdrop of strict rules underscoring Tommy's patrol. Avoid Ward D after 10 p.m. and specifically disregard any calls from room 237, a space officially vacant since 1974. Yet, this voice defied those warnings. The elevator, which supposedly only operated between midnight and 3 a.m., had been moving mysteriously, stopping on the fourth floor where Tommy's unseen caller beckoned him. Tommy wrestled with confusion and dread, realizing the voice on a radio did not match the text messages from the Real Eddie, who was confirmed to be safely watching television miles away. This discovery plunged Tommy deeper into the complex's dark history, marking the moment when he understood that the haunting voices were not merely echoes, but were tied to an unsettling past woven into the hospital's very walls. A past where reality and supernatural merged, and where the deceased seemed to reach out from the shadows to communicate, to warn, or perhaps to trap. At around 5 a.m., the atmosphere inside the Eloise complex shifted dramatically. The eerie stillness was replaced by the unsettling sound of water flooding through the halls. What began as a slow trickle from the kitchen sink escalated into streams of yellowish, murky water pooling on the linoleum floors and spreading throughout the building. Tommy observed the flood's progression with mounting dread. The water carried with it piles of dissolved pills and floating prescription bottles, remnants of decades-long decay and containment. Despite his adherence to the cryptic rules, the containment system was failing. The water seeped through cracks in the plaster and ceiling tiles, streaming down walls as if the entire structure was being consumed. As the floodwaters rose to chest height in some wards and even deeper in others, Tommy became trapped inside by malfunctioning electronic locks and rising currents. He received a tense, urgent message via his radio. The basement valve he'd turned on earlier had never been shut off, and it was causing the flood. The valve under the hydrotherapy tub was the main shutoff. In reaching it was his only hope. Despite explicit warnings never to enter Ward D past 10 p.m., Tommy understood this was no ordinary night. With the building flooding and doors locked solid, he ventured into previously forbidden areas, following the signs and the voice on his radio, directing him to room 237. Each step took him closer to the dark heart of the mystery, the hydrotherapy wing where spirits and secrets intertwined, the very place where choices he made would decide whether the supernatural flood would be contained or release its anguished souls into the world. The flood and the overwhelming urgency forced Tommy into difficult decisions, challenging the rules he'd trusted and pushing him to question his role in the haunting balance he'd committed to guard. Eddie's identity was revealed through the eerie flooding that unfolded within the Eloise complex. As Tommy navigated the rising, pill-strewn waters, he encountered Eddie, not in person, but as a spectral presence entwined with the building's haunted essence. Eddie's voice emerged from the very waters that flooded the halls, explaining that he'd been trapped there for decades after breaking the very rules Tommy was now bound to follow. The old security guard shared the truth behind his fate. Years ago, Eddie, much like Tommy, worked a night shift at Eloise. His curiosity led him beyond obedience. He defied protocols to explore the hydrotherapy wing, uncovering its dark secret, that patients long deceased were preserved in a liminal state in the endlessly circulating water. Eddie's interference unleashed forces beyond control, causing the supernatural flooding and binding him to the building's containment system as its eternal guardian. Through this spectral communication, Tommy grasped that obeying the mysterious rules wasn't just about survival. It was a fragile balance designed to contain restless spirits and maintain order within the haunted hospital's supernatural ecosystem. Eddie's revelation cast a chilling light on the stakes of Tommy's own night shift, linking past transgressions to present dangers and setting the stage for the critical decisions Tommy would face. As the floodwaters surged through the Eloise complex, Tommy stood in the heart of the chaos, faced with a staggering choice. Before him lay the main shut-off valve beneath the clawfoot tub in room 237, a valve that could stop the flooding and seal the trapped souls within the building once again. Turning it off meant taking up Eddie's mantle as the building's new guardian, bound indefinitely to the supernatural system, forever tethered to this place. However, refusing to act would unleash the flood's full power, releasing scores of spirits, both innocent and malevolent, into the world, unrestrained and seeking vengeance. Eddie's voice echoed urgently beside him, explaining the gravity of the decision. The containment system held not just patients who suffered here, but all who had died within the hospital's walls across nearly a century. To shut the valve was to maintain the delicate balance, giving Tommy control over who to free and who to keep imprisoned. But the system was rigid and inflexible, complete containment or utter release. Realizing the bleakness of those options, Tommy discovered a subtle system of smaller valves, each assigned to individual rooms. Instead of being shackled by the original rules, he chose to forge his own path. Guided by the whispers of the freed, innocent spirits, he selectively opened valves to release victims while locking away those who had inflicted harm, doctors who abused their power and administrators who concealed atrocities. The building trembled violently as sections of ceiling collapsed and water threatened to consume everything. Yet, with every valve opened, the oppressive weight of a haunting presence lightened. The collective will of the released souls began reinforcing the prison, containing the guilty through spiritual strength, an unexpected order in the face of chaos. Eddie's protests grew desperate, warning of the system's collapse, but Tommy stood firm in his resolve. He even welded shut the valves controlling the most dangerous offenders, ensuring their imprisonment would endure beyond his own watch. As the building continued to crumble around him, Tommy made his escape through the rising floodwaters and failing stairwells. Once outside, he saw the complex's slow, almost peaceful collapse, the release of the long-imprisoned souls at last granted freedom, while the guilty remained as eternal prisoners under the vigilance of those they had wronged. In that moment, Tommy understood that exceeding the original rules, embracing nuance and compassion, was the true key to salvation for the dead, the living, and the fragile legacy of the Eloise complex. After the collapse of the Eloise complex, Tommy Kowalsski tried to return to his ordinary life, finding work installing solar panels across Wayne County during daylight hours. Free from night shifts, eerie rules, and haunted corridors. Yet the memories of that night lingered, a shadow cast long by the building's secrets. Official records offered no evidence of Edmund Kowalski's death in 1987. His cousin Eddie was reportedly alive and well, working as a mechanic in Dearborn. The security company denied Tommy's employment, and the contact number Eddie had, once provided, was disconnected. The site where Eloise once stood was cleared for new development. Modern condominiums rising over the old psychiatric hospital's grounds, their brochures silent about the dark history beneath. Occasionally, on sleepless nights, Tommy could still hear the faint sound of water flowing through pipes that should not exist, reminders that the guilty remained sealed away beneath the new foundation. held by the grateful spirits he had freed, now guardians maintaining the prison. Though doubts sometimes crept in about his choices, Tommy found comfort in the peaceful release of those victims, knowing that while the rules had their place, sometimes new rules must be written to restore balance. The haunting legacy of the Eloise complex remains etched in Tommy's mind as he reflects on the harrowing choices he faced that night. He understands now that the rules weren't merely guidelines to follow. They represented a delicate balance between containment and release, safety and chaos. Tommy's decision to rewrite the system rather than blindly uphold it speaks to the profound consequences that arise when one dares to challenge the boundaries of the unknown. The tale closes with the lingering truth that sometimes rules exist not just to be obeyed, but to be questioned and, when necessary, changed to seek justice and peace. If you found this story gripping, be sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share it with fellow fans of thrilling narratives. Your support means the world and keeps these eerie tales coming every week.